I want you to think about your phone for a second. How many apps do you have downloaded on your phone right now? 50? 100? But how many of these apps do you actually use every day? Probably 5 or 6. Am I right? Now, think about your English learning. How many YouTube channels about English learning are you subscribed to right now? How many language learning apps do you have downloaded on your phone? How many unfinished courses do you have sitting in your digital library? If you're tired of jumping from resource to resource, or tired of setting ambitious goals for your learning that never materialize, this video is for you. In today's episode, I want to explain to you this revolutionary approach called slow productivity and how you can apply the 3 principles of slow productivity to your English learning. That way, you're going to see much better results in the long term and you're not going to feel burned out. Are you ready? So let's get started. Hey there, how's it going? Thiago here, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. In case this is the first time listening to me, the purpose of this podcast is to help intermediate and advanced learners of English communicate with more confidence, more accuracy, more clarity, and more awareness. If this sounds like something you want for yourself and your English, subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. And if you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, follow the show because that way you won't miss a single new episode. So I want to start by talking about the problem. Let's talk about a disease, a serious disease that has infected our modern world. And this disease is called busyness. Busyness. We've all been there, right? 10 tabs open with English exercises on your computer. 3 different language apps sending notifications all at once. A podcast in English playing in the background. A grammar book sitting on your desk. And a YouTube video running at twice the speed. This, my friends, is called pseudo-productivity. It's not true productivity, it's pseudo-productivity. This is the illusion of progress. It's mistaken motion for action. It's thinking that doing more things in less time equals being productive. Now, let's picture a fictional student called Pedro. Imagine that Pedro has a day like this. At 6 a.m., he studies with an app like Duolingo, for example. And then at 7 a.m., he watches some YouTube videos about English learning. And then at lunch break, he listens to a podcast in English. And then in the evening, he does some grammar exercises. Finally, before bed, he watches Netflix with English subtitles. He seems to be doing everything right, doesn't he? But is he? Guys, this is a recipe for burnout. After a few months, this student's progress will likely be minimal. He will be exhausted, frustrated, and close to giving up. So what is the solution to this so-called productivity or pseudo-productivity? This is where Cal Newport comes in. For those of you who don't know him, Cal Newport is a computer science professor at Georgetown University and the author of several game-changing books, including Deep Work and his latest, Slow Productivity. As a matter of fact, I have been reading this book, Slow Productivity, now, and I actually drew inspiration from this book and this idea for today's episode. The author, Cal Newport, says that our obsession with doing more is actually making us less effective. And while he isn't specifically talking about language learning, his principles perfectly solve our English learning challenges, and we can transfer those principles to English learning as well. So let's talk about the solution, which is what he calls in the book slow productivity. Let's break down the 3 principles of slow productivity and see how they can transform your English learning. So according to Cal in the book, the first principle of slow productivity is do fewer things. Do fewer things. So instead of following, for example, 20 plus English teachers here on YouTube, instead of having 5, 6, 10 language apps installed on your phone, or instead of trying to master all the skills, listening, reading, writing, speaking simultaneously, try the slow productivity way, which is something much more minimal, much more intentional and deliberate. For example, instead of following 20 plus creators here on YouTube, follow 3 to 5, just a handful. Pick a handful of good English teachers here on the platform that you identify with and follow them. Just a handful, between 3 to 5. About language learning apps, pick one. Focus on one primary app that you're going to use for English learning. You're going to add to your study routine. When you have a study session, try to master one skill at a time or 2 skills at a time tops. Don't try to learn everything or practice everything at once. You can spread it out a little bit throughout the week. Maybe one day you focus more on writing, the other day you focus more on speaking, and then on listening, and on like that. I was watching a video of Cal the other day, and in this video he was defining slow productivity. And then when talking about doing fewer things, he says that this is about committing to having fewer things on your plate. When you have too many things on your plate, you have too many things to worry about. You have taken on too many tasks. So doing fewer things is about committing to doing fewer things. Also, your tasks, the tasks that you have throughout the day should be below the level of chronic overload, he says. So we all have, let's say, a limit that if we surpass this limit, we're going to start feeling stressed out and burned out. So the number of tasks we implement in our routine should be below this line, our limit. And he says something really funny. He says, you are not a computer processor. You are not a computer processor. You are a human. So you have to take your time, and humans are not designed to do too many things at the same time, like a computer does. Now, bringing that to English learning, you can embrace the less is more philosophy. Remember, less is more. Less is more. Remember those words. Also, I would say beware of the shiny object syndrome. This is a nice expression, the shiny object syndrome. We've all been there. The shiny object syndrome is when you buy a solution and then a few weeks later, you see another solution that seems better. So you buy that one, and then that one, and then the other one, and then the other one. Look, there will always be something new for you to buy, something new for you to try. There will always be a new YouTube channel talking about English learning here. There will always be a new podcast, a new app for language learning, a new course. There will always be something new. So if you are the type of person who buys a course here, does something with it for a little while, and then there's a new app that just came out, you download that and then subscribe to that. You use that a little bit, and then you start having classes with a private teacher. You stay with this private teacher for 2-3 months, and then you stop, and then you move teachers, or you move to a school, or you take another course. If you are always doing this jumping around, you are likely having the shiny object syndrome. This reminds me of a student of mine called Leah. So Leah, shout out to you if you're listening to me right now. Hope you're doing well there. Guys, Leah has been my student since the beginning of this year. She started having classes with me in January, and she said something funny when she met me, in class. She said, Thiago, I've already tried many courses, many teachers, so you are my last hope, she said. She said, when I found you on YouTube, I was like, okay, this is the guy, I'm going to stay with him, until I reach my goal. I thought it was funny when she said that, but this is really cool, guys. It shows that she's committed, she's determined. She found a teacher, me in this case. She decided to have classes with me. We have been having classes since then. And, she's committed to, let's say, staying with me for a good amount of time until she reaches her goals or her results with the language, right? This is definitely something for you to think about. So try not to buy too many things or subscribe to too many things, because that is just counterproductive. Moving on to the second principle of slow productivity, we have work at a natural pace. This is about making it sustainable for you. Working at a sustainable pace, but we are talking about studying English here. So your English studies, your English practice should be sustainable, meaning that you should be able to study English, to practice your English for a long time. So for example, studying 2 hours a day won't likely be sustainable for a very long time. You will burn yourself out very soon. It's also about embracing seasonality, varying the intensity of your studies, okay? Meaning that maybe for a couple of months you study a little bit harder, and then you kind of take a break. The next month you study but not so hard, or you don't dedicate as many hours. You have kind of a pause, or you might even take a full-blown 1 week off or 2 week off. All right. And then you come back to your studies, to your classes, to your course, whatever it is. But it's about embracing seasonality. Human beings work better and produce better if we do that in seasons. Okay. Some seasons we are more productive, we are more intense. Other seasons we should be reflecting more, processing ideas and information more, taking it a little bit easier. This is called seasonality. All right. Great work happens in seasons. That's the main idea here. Now, ask yourself, what is a realistic amount of time I can set aside for English learning that I can keep going for the next 5 years? Okay? 2 hours a day? Can you keep 2 hours a day study English for 5 years? I find it quite hard. I gotta learn English this year. I gotta become fluent in English this year. That's a lot of pressure that you are putting on yourself. What is the likelihood or probability that you're gonna get it? And then if the year comes to an end and you haven't reached your goal of becoming fluent this year, how do you think you're gonna feel about yourself? You're not gonna feel good about yourself. And you'll likely say something like, it didn't work for me. I am not cut out for English learning, for language learning. I give up. This is not for me. What is the problem here? You are putting too much pressure on yourself by giving yourself this very limited time frame to significantly improve your English. Now, if you give yourself between 3 and 5 years, let's say if you give yourself 5 years, now, if you miss a Tuesday, that feels very differently, doesn't it? Oh, I missed today. I missed my study, my practice today, but it's okay because, I'm looking at a 5-year time frame here. You see? So this is what he says also. Think in months and years. Don't think in days or weeks. Also, when it comes to seasonality, we need time to process new information. We need rest and recovery time as well. It's not just about producing, in this case, studying, practicing. We also need some time to process the information we have been consuming. And we also need rest and recovery. I can give you a personal example about the gym. I have recently started going back to the gym, and I was pretty sedentary for the years prior, but now I'm coming back to the gym slowly. And last week, something funny actually happened. I worked out my upper body and my arms. And then 2 days after that workout, my arm was like this. I just couldn't stretch it. I couldn't stretch it all the way. This arm was fine, but my left arm was like that. And it hurt. It hurt a lot, And then I started even to get afraid of it and scared, like, oh my God, did I break myself at the gym? But the next day, 3 days after the workout, I gained my mobility back. Why? Because that was my body recovering. The body needs time to rest, recover, and then I can keep going to the gym and working out, right? Similar principle here. Your brain, your mind needs time to recover, to take it easy, to process the information that you have been consuming. It's also about reducing the scope to baby steps with the skills that you struggle with the most. So once you identify the skills in English or the topics in English that you struggle with the most, that are really hard for you, those, you should narrow those down even further. You should take baby steps. This reminds me of Tony. Tony has been taking my pronunciation course, and he's also a member of my private community. And a few weeks ago, when I was giving him feedback, I noticed that he was practicing some of the sounds in the pronunciation course by picking texts, random texts online, and reading them aloud, which is great. He was trying to implement the sounds he was learning in the course in those texts as he read them out loud. But the problem was he was picking texts that were too advanced for his level, just too complex, with lots of unknown advanced words. And then I told him, look, pick simpler texts, And remember, your focus here is on your pronunciation. You are honing the sounds of English. So the complexity of the text here doesn't really matter at this stage, focus on the sounds. So I told him, you can even grab some kids' books, pick some children's books that have much simpler language and shorter sentences, and practice the sounds you've been learning in the course with those books or with that material. Because you see, the focus now is on the sounds, on the pronunciation. You see, taking baby steps with the skills, with the areas you struggle with the most, okay? Finally, the third principle, according to Cal Newport, of slow productivity is called obsess over quality. Obsess over quality. He says, obsess over the quality of what you produce, even if this means missing opportunities in the short term. This reminds me of two popular acronyms that are being thrown around online, FOMO and JOMO. FOMO and JOMO. So FOMO stands for fear of missing out. You choose to do something, but then in the back of your head, you are thinking about doing something else because that something else seems more fun or more attractive than what you're doing right now. So you fear that you are missing out on something cooler, something better. This is FOMO. Or you just bought a new pair of jeans. You arrived home with your new pair of jeans, but then you start thinking, maybe I should have gotten the other pair of jeans. I think that one was better in terms of quality. You see, so you're now really happy with what you got, which was likely a good choice. This is FOMO, fear of missing out. We have this constant sensation that we are always missing out on the next big app, on the next nice YouTube channel, on the next course. So we keep buying stuff and we keep doing stuff, and we never really settle with just a few resources, Now, instead of that, I would recommend embracing more the JOMO philosophy. JOMO stands for joy of missing out, not fear of missing out, but joy of missing out. Be happy with the fact that you are deliberately saying no to this YouTube channel, to that podcast, to that course, to that app, and you are just saying yes to a select handful of resources that will act or will serve as your guide in your English learning journey, okay? Another term that this reminds me of is opportunity costs. Yeah, opportunity costs is exactly that. Whenever you choose to do something, you are choosing not to do other things, and those other things might have attractive features that can make what you're doing in the moment less attractive. So we are always thinking about what could be or what could have been. We are never enjoying the present moment. Remember, do less, but better. That's the principle. How can you apply this principle of obsessing over quality, doing less but better in your English studies, in your English learning? Think about that. Reflect on that. Because one word well learned is much better than trying to learn 10 words at once, or 100 words at once, 1,000 words at once. Think about that. It's also about focusing on one topic at a time, So maybe you pick a topic, let's say a grammar topic, reported speech, that you want to master. stay with that topic for a while. Spend a few months practicing that topic, trying to find that topic in media, creating sentences, using that topic, doing exercises. You see? Give yourself time to master all the areas of the English language and all the topics there are for you to study. This also reminds me of what I call the quality framework. The quality framework. How can you obsess over quality more often in your English studies? Apply the quality framework. And you can do that in 3 basic steps. Step 1, consume. Find meaningful content online in English. Meaningful, something that is interesting to you, that you like to consume. So find that, consume that. After consuming that meaningful content, you have to process it. You need time to process that information and have more of a deeper engagement with that content. What does it mean to process it? Well, it could be reflecting on what you just heard, on what you just watched. It could be thinking about those ideas for a week or two. Like, in this episode, I'm presenting to you this new idea, this new concept of slow productivity. So maybe for the next 2-3 weeks or even months, reflect on this idea of slow productivity. Read more about it, learn more about it. You see, you are processing this information. And the third step of the quality framework is creation. You create something with the information you acquired or you learned. So you can write summaries of, what you have been learning, what you have been consuming. You can focus on using that new information the next chance you have, maybe using that information the next English class you have, using this information in the next comment you're going to write here, under the video, for example. So it's about creating something with the information that was newly gained. Teaching is also a great way to engage in active production or creation. Teach someone that information that you just learned. So today, for example, you are learning about slow productivity. After processing this information for a while, teach someone about this concept of slow productivity. Explain the 3 principles of slow productivity. By doing that, you are creating something new, something yourself with this information. So remember, consume the content, spend some time processing this content, thinking about it. If you need some days in between of pause and rest, do it. And then thirdly, engage in active production. Create something with this new information, a summary, actively using it, teaching someone. You see, this is how you learn new ideas and new concepts. All right? So how can you get started applying slow productivity in your English studies? How can you get started with this principle here, with this idea? The first step I would say is do a little resource audit. Compile every resource about English learning that you have nowadays. See how many YouTube channels you are subscribed to, see how many apps you have, how many courses you've already bought, whether you are having classes with a private teacher already or not, or whether you are enrolled at a language school or not. So do a little resource audit. What do you have nowadays? Once you have that list, I would say just cut that list down to the essential 3 to 5 resources. That's it. About YouTube channels, just cut it down to 3 to 5. Language apps, I would say 1, maybe 2 maximum, and that's it. Courses, you've already got one, finish that one before thinking about buying the next one. Are you already having private classes with a teacher? Stick to that teacher. If he's a good teacher, if you are enjoying the classes and if you are learning, stick to that teacher. Do this resource audit and cut it down ruthlessly, all right? Also, you can choose one skill to focus on, all right? Maybe you want to improve your speaking skills. So you give yourself a little time frame, like, this semester, I want to significantly improve my speaking skills, my communication skills. Or I want to significantly improve my pronunciation this year. I'll be fully focused on pronunciation the entire year. You see, it's 1 year for one aspect of English. It's not 1 year for all there is to learn about English. Also, set realistic study times. All right, remember, what is a realistic amount of time you can dedicate to your English learning per day, per week, and for how long? All right, remember, ideally 3 to 5 years. That's the time frame you want to give yourself. And whenever you are studying something new, whenever you are consuming new information, apply the quality framework. Don't just consume the new information. Take time to process it and then do something with it, create something with it. All right? So remember, guys, as final words here, in a world obsessed with more, faster, and now, the real breakthrough, the real result comes from doing less, slower, and better. So think about that. And now it's time for the Learner's Corner. For the Learner's Corner this week, I'm going to read to you an email that I got from Irina recently. Very nice email, so check it out. Hello, Thiago. My name is Irina, and I am from Vilnius. I hope I'm reading it correctly. Lithuania. I have been watching your videos since you created your channel. Though I don't have much time for studying English intensively, I listen to your podcast while commuting or just in the evening almost every day. Thank you for doing that, by the way. I really appreciate your work and your teaching style. Thanks again. Thank you, Thiago. I believe that your lessons have helped me a lot. I decided to share my story just to encourage your students. Some time ago, I took your lesson. I checked. It was in May. I was so confused and felt unconfident. It was really hard for me to speak English. However, my determination to take my English to the next level was stronger than my frustration and fear of speaking. I remembered that in one of your episodes, you said, "Don't be afraid to apply for jobs where spoken English is required." I would have never thought about it, but your advice encouraged me. One day, I saw a job advertisement that attracted me a lot. The American Embassy was looking for a housing assistant. And I read the job description. I realized that my education and experience fully fit this position. But good knowledge of English, especially spoken English, was also required. However, I sent my CV with my poor B1 level. By the way, a B1 level is not a poor level, okay? You can already do many nice things with this level. It's an intermediate level. You are already independent as a user, so remember that. It's not a poor level. I was about to forget about it, but recently I got a call from the embassy. I was one of the candidates, and they asked me to take an English language test, listening, grammar, text comprehension, vocabulary. I thought it was going to be a fail, but I passed. My score, 71 out of 80. Congratulations, that's an excellent score. However, it wasn't the end of my suffering. Nice one, my suffering. HR invited me for the interview. It was really challenging. I was making mistakes and trying to find words, but I am already so happy that I managed to overcome my doubts and deal with my fear. Even if my application is rejected, I will be very, very happy because now I have a lot of motivation without fear and self-doubt. I wish everyone good luck, and especially I wish you all the best. May your channel grow and continue to inspire many more students. Best regards, Irina. Wow, Irina, thank you so much for the wonderful email and for sharing your story here, your experience, and great job. Great job for overcoming your doubts, overcoming your fears, and applying for the job, passing the test, and fingers crossed. Let's see what's going to happen after the interview. By the way, let me know, yeah? Maybe leave me a comment here in a future video, giving me the updates, or send me a new email, giving me the updates about this selection process. I'm curious to see the end result. But in any case, you should definitely see that as a win already. Whether you get this job or not, this is definitely a win and you should definitely celebrate it. So I'm very happy that you follow my work and you found inspiration and motivation in my work. And keep going, keep studying, keep practicing. All right? Guys, if you want to do it just like Irina, you can send me an email sharing your story, sharing a question, any comments that you have, any feedback to be featured here on the show. To send me an email, you can write me at hello.teacherthiago@gmail.com. Or if you prefer, you can send me an audio message of about 90 seconds by going to speakpipe.com/English with Thiago. I'm looking forward to receiving your messages. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found this information about slow productivity useful for your life and for your English learning. I really recommend you check out Cal Newport's book, Slow Productivity. Pick it up, read it, and I think that is going to give you a new way of looking at productivity, what it truly means to be productive in today's day and age. And remember that a free way for you to support my work here on YouTube first is by liking the video, leaving a comment, sharing what you thought about this content, about this idea of slow productivity, sharing this video with a friend who could use this information. And of course, if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel. If you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, another free way to help me is by leaving a 5-star review over there, because that also helps me on those platforms. All right. Now, if you want to take a step further with me, there are some things you can do. First of all, you can become a member of this channel. For a very small amount of money per month, you support my work here financially and you make it viable. You make it possible for me to keep creating content here week after week. Content to help you in your English learning journey. Also, you can check out my pronunciation course. This is a course all about the sounds of English, connected speech patterns. So if you want to take your pronunciation to the next level, check out that course. You can also join my private community where you have access to, material that is not available here on YouTube. So extra master classes, live Q&As with me every month. And you also get to interact with other members and be part of a nice community of English learners just like you. You can also be part of that. And finally, if you are interested in having classes with me privately or in group, there is a form here in the description of the video and also in the show notes for you to fill out expressing your interest in having classes with me. I'm always evaluating people's responses there. And if I see that there is a good match, I will reach out to you by email and then we can discuss this further. Thanks again for listening. I'm Thiago. I'm signing off and I'll be talking to you very soon in the upcoming episode. Bye-bye.